This boy is Jamal Wallace, a normal high school student majoring in language and literature. He and his friends are just like other teenagers, spending most of their time playing and hating school, but besides his actively playing basketball with his friends, which led him to play for the school, he was also good at writing. Every day, he and his friend had the chance to show his friends he was brave enough. The next day, Jamal's mother, Mrs. Joyce, was called to the school by Jamal's homeroom teacher, telling her that her son's grade was not enough for him to pass, but despite that, his teacher still couldn't believe such a good writer like Jamal couldn't survive class. His writing was admirable compared to his grades. One night, Jamal and his friends planned to get into the old man's apartment. Jamal entered via the fire escape and managed to enter through an unlocked window because he thought the old man was already asleep and the lights were off anyway. He went in there and took a few things as proof that he had conquered the challenge. Jamal didn't expect that the place was full of books he never read before. That actually made Jamal interested. Sadly, he didn't know that the old man had not slept. As soon as the old man woke up, Jamal immediately left there. Unfortunately, Jamal's bag was left in the old... It turned out that apart from poetry, Jamal was also interested in cars, especially BMWs. Initially, Jamal's arrival was not accepted because this man was worried that Jamal would touch his car, but Jamal immediately told the history of BMW and amazed the man. He couldn't say anything but was silenced in amazement at Jamal's broad knowledge. After talking to that man, Jamal was shocked because the old man threw his bag and returned it from his apartment. He then checked the bag when he was home and found nothing missing, but instead, all of his writing was praised and corrected and thankfully was a big help to improve his writing. After receiving such good feedback, he decided to return to the place the next day. He started by apologizing after breaking into the apartment that night. He also said writing in front of the door. One day at school, Mrs. Joyce and Jamal were called to the principal's office because of Jamal's unsatisfactory test scores. The principal offered to transfer Jamal to a private school. Mrs. Joyce was surprised at the instance because she knew she wouldn't be able to afford the fee. But suddenly, a man named David Bradley interfered. He was the representative of the private school. He said that the school would provide a scholarship for Jamal because they were interested in his basketball game. Bradley said that he was very happy if Jamal considered playing because there were alumni of that school who had become professional players. Before going home, Jamal went back to the apartment to meet the old man and to check whether he took the paper he left or not. He then saw the paper had gone from its place and the old man had taken it from there. He then decided to wait outside while continuing his writing when suddenly the old man opened the door for him for the first time. That was the first time he was invited to the place. While waiting for the old man to scribble on his writing, Jamal told the old man who he was only a 16-year-old boy who lived with his mother and siblings, living mediocrely, while his father was an addict their family. After the old man finished correcting his writing, he praised Jamal for his skill, despite being black and young. One day, Jamal went to the private school that offered him the scholarship. The view in that school was completely different from where he came from. There he met Claire, a girl student who was assigned to show Jamal around the school. Claire then invited Jamal to attend a literature class. On that occasion, the teacher gave the task to all the students present to write out a book by a famous author named William Forrester. After finishing, Jamal was told to come back tomorrow. Jamal said that he would do a trial run on the basketball court tomorrow morning. Long story short, the next morning, Jamal had a trial match because the coach wanted to see him play. Jamal initially wanted to be friendly to a player named John, but he didn't seem to be friendly with Jamal. Thanks to that, an intense and provocative game between them ensued. According to Claire, John is just a rich kid who wanted to get all the attention. He realized that at this school, he had to face everything seriously. On that occasion, Claire, who loved to read books, showed Jamal an old William Forrester book that she got from her father. When he saw the front cover of the book, Jamal was surprised that William Forrester, the well-known author of a well-known literary book, was the old man he knew. Jamal immediately said goodbye to Claire and left. That night, Jamal came to the old man's house and asked for help with an assignment given at school to write about one of the books written by William Forrester. Another day at school, Jamal's teacher, Robert, said that a writing contest that year had been scheduled and students who wanted to participate in the contest had to submit their writing before the school holidays. As usual, Jamal visited Forrester to get a lesson. Jamal said that people at school, especially his teacher, were wrong in judging Forrester's personality because they discussed Forrester's book at school every day. Forrester said it didn't matter how others judged him because he couldn't clarify the truth anyway. Forrester then taught Jamal the first rule to write, to pay attention to what he was working on, that writing is not thinking, meaning that he only needed to pour out what he felt in his heart, because writing that comes from the heart will touch the heart of those who read it. Jamal was shocked. Within just a minute, Forrester was immediately able to write so easily. When Jamal was stuck in writing, Forrester told Jamal to start one paragraph from his old work to stimulate Jamal's way of writing. Forrester reminded Jamal that everything he wrote in that apartment should not leave from there. Jamal then tried to write for his school assignments when he was at home. Next day, Jamal still had the competition with John, and it got more intense to the point that the coach punished them by throwing the ball into the ring. Unexpectedly, they managed to throw 50 throws without failing a single throw. After practice, Robert called Jamal and said that Jamal's writing had a significant improvement. Even Robert didn't believe it when Jamal said that the basketball team. Unexpectedly, Jamal played well that night and scored a lot of points. Fly, his old school friend, came to congratulate him and asked him to go to a party with him, but Jamal reluctantly refuses the invitation because he had to attend the school party that night at Claire's house. After all, her father was the head of the school board. In a place surrounded by important people, Jamal got several offers because of his good game on the field earlier. Jamal's achievements certainly caught the attention of Claire that started to show interest in him. They became closer and started talking a lot, even though Claire was one of the rich kids at the school. Not only his basketball skills had improved, but Jamal's ability to write was also getting better. Even Forrester praised him. Jamal managed to make an old work by Forrester into his own work with his own writing style. At that time, Jamal asked if people out there still read Forrester's book, so Forrester asked Jamal to make a bet and check it the other day. Jamal then went to the library, and sure enough, Forrester's book was still read by everyone, even had a waiting list. After losing the bet, Jamal had to buy Forrester dinner. While eating dinner, Jamal told Forrester about the writing contest held at his school. He said that his writing had to be read in front of many people. Forrester said that writing should be read by other people, not the writer. Forrester said that the book review event was just to impress the opposite, so Forrester advised Jamal to give unexpected gifts at unexpected times if Jamal wanted to impress the girl he desired. So, on another day, Jamal gave Forrester's book, complete with his signature, and made Claire the gift. One time at school, Robert told the principal that Jamal might have plagiarized the writing he made. Robert said that Jamal was just a basketball player and there was no way he could have written such a good writing like that. Robert seemed to be jealous of Jamal and still couldn't believe in his skill. Robert didn't know that almost every day Jamal was trained by a famous writer. Jamal's way of thinking in an unusual way, so it was not surprising that Jamal's writing style is more or less similar to Forrester's, but still, that didn't mean that Jamal plagiarized or took Forrester's unpublished works. Before Jamal went home, he accidentally saw a photo album in the apartment. It is a photo album of Forrester's childhood with his family. Although Forrester refused to tell personal things about him, Jamal was still able to get to know Forrester through the photo album. One day, Jamal took Forrester out to watch his basketball match. Forrester, who had been locked away from society for years, was not feeling well in a crowd and was not used to it. Moreover, he was separated from Jamal in the crowd, which got him panic attacks and anxiety. Luckily, Jamal managed to find him again and chose to take him away from the crowd. Before going home, Jamal, with the help of his brother Terrell, took Forrester to a baseball stadium where Forrester used to watch some matches with his family back then. Jamal gave a surprise to Forrester because it turned out that it was his birthday. For the first time since they were friends, Forrester talked about his family, how he and his brother used to get along very well until the war changed his brother. Forrester was not from around the city, but he used to have a lot of memories with his family there. Even all of them died in that city. That night, Jamal accidentally made Forrester remember his family who had left him for decades. One time, Jamal by Robert at his office. He found out Jamal's improvement was way too fast, considering his background and his former school's reputation. Robert drew a conclusion: either Jamal was talented or he was committing plagiarism. For this reason, 2 weeks from that day, Jamal was ordered to meet him again and told to write directly in front of him. Of course, Jamal was annoyed about that and told that to Forrester. Forrester thought that Robert couldn't understand why such a young man from a bad school could write with such a quality. Forrester told to accept the challenge to prove himself to Robert. 2 weeks later, Jamal once again met Robert and did what he was told to, but despite what Robert saw with his own eyes, he still thought that Jamal had plagiarized Forrester's published work. Even after that, Jamal still sent his writing to be included in the writing contest. Later in class, Robert taught a quote from a famous poet. He then ordered a student who was not paying attention to explain his opinion about the poem and ended up humiliating him. Jamal couldn't stand but help his classmate. Seeing that, Robert tried mocking Jamal by saying that Jamal's knowledge might be better than his basketball career. To respond to the humiliation, Jamal corrected the words that Robert misused. Even when Robert challenged Jamal to continue from the book, Jamal could easily finish it. After losing in his own game, Robert told Jamal to leave the class. Jamal was annoyed because he was kicked out. The other day, Jamal was summoned again by Robert, but this time along with the school's principal and Claire's father. Jamal was accused of plagiarizing Forrester's work, which he submitted for the writing contest, and this time, unfortunately, Robert had proof. Robert showed a work of Forrester in a magazine that was published in 1960. Jamal's writing had the same title and resemblance as the first paragraph of the work. Jamal was told to confess, but he couldn't be honest because he had promised to never talk Forrester to anybody. Jamal was told to write an apology letter, otherwise, his scholarship would be revoked and he would be forbidden to play basketball. Before leaving from there, Robert said that this was his punishment because Jamal had embarrassed him in front of the class. After Jamal talked about it to Forrester, he was shocked because what Jamal wrote there shouldn't left there. Jamal was annoyed because Forrester never told him that the title had already been published. Jamal asked Forrester for help to explain to the school that he had received permission from Forrester to use the work, but Forrester immediately refused to help. The two began arguing. Jamal was disappointed because Forrester didn't want to help him and was afraid to leave the apartment, but on the other hand, Forrester also had his own reasons. Shortly after, Jamal and his team were about to face the final match of the tournament. Claire's father, the head of the school board, offered to defend Jamal if he could defend the champion's trophy. Jamal agreed without any hesitation. The match was intense. The teams took turns in scoring to win the match. Jamal and John became the most reliable, but their team was still 1 point behind when the time was about to run out. Jamal managed to get fouled to get 2 free throws to secure the win. Everyone believed in Jamal, and the whole team knew Jamal could score easily. But the pressure that night was different. He failed to score a single throw and failed to bring the trophy home. Everyone was disappointed with the result, including Forrester, who watched the match from home. After being considered a talented player for months, that night, he was a big loser. To cheer himself up, Jamal went to the public library, where he wrote a letter to Forrester. When he returned home, Terrell found Jamal's letter for Forrester on the table, so the next morning he decided to deliver Forrester and said that the letter was written by Jamal right after the game. The next day, Jamal went to the writing contest symposium. His arrival surprised Robert and all his friends. Even though he was eliminated as a participant, Jamal just wanted to see the other participants read their work. When Robert was about to close the event, unexpectedly, William Forrester was there and asked permission to say a few words. Of course, Forrester was welcomed. Jamal was surprised to see Forrester. He was curious about Forrester's reason to come to his school. On the podium, without further ado, Forrester could easily introduce himself as a famous writer because his portrait was put on the wall. There, he read out the writing he brought, charismatic demeanor. Everyone was bewitched by what he just read. After reading the essay, Forrester immediately left the podium. Robert praised the writing that Forrester just read as an amazing work with beautifully arranged words, but Forrester immediately clarified by saying that he came for a friend who was not allowed to talk, Jamal Wallace. Robert was surprised to hear that Jamal was a friend of William Forrester. Jamal had proven that he had integrity by not mentioning the figure of Forrester, and Forrester confirmed that yesterday's writing was originally made by Jamal, but Robert still didn't change his decision not to include Jamal in the contest. Forrester immediately replied by saying that the writing he read just now was written by Jamal. The principal immediately took over and said that the school would release Jamal from the trial with the school board. Jamal finally left the room with his head held high after such a comeback. After that, Forrester told Jamal that there were no more lessons he could teach and that his letter had moved his heart. Forrester decided to leave his apartment and would go to his hometown in Scotland. Finally, without saying goodbye, Forrester left Jamal. A year had passed and Jamal still went to the school. He received many offers for scholarships to college, consisting of an apartment key and all the books in it. After receiving the inheritance, Jamal invited his mother and brother to move there. In the final scene, a draft of a novel by William Forrester and Jamal Wallace was shown as the last work.